4 French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. The 3 wide again, Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across, they're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
Before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy, you know, these are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower brake.
Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, he's been loved and a terrific show off.
Dan Gregory now, I love it. 16.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chaz Draycott Media and welcome to the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge and welcome to the penultimate round of Season 3 here at the beautiful, the breathtaking Red Bull Ring, one of my very favourite circuits in the world and a favourite of many of our drivers here this evening as well. Not the most challenging circuit in terms of how many corners this place has got, but it certainly is a very understated challenge for those racing here. A quick shout to our wonderful championship sponsors, of course, Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Blinds to Go, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Mydas Simulations, and a big shout and hello to my wonderful co-commentator Ed May. Ed, we're just getting into the finale part of this season now. It could be wrapped up this evening in one way or another, but obviously we're both hoping that it goes the whole way, aren't we?
Yeah, we really hope that the championship goes the distance. It's always that little bit more entertaining and adds a bit more jeopardy, doesn't it, at the final round of the championship. But of course, the drivers have to get their heads around this amazing Red Bull Ring circuit. The sort of third sector is so technical, so difficult for the drivers to get nailed down because of the elevation change. While you do see on paper the track looks relatively simple, it's more sort of the way the circuit undulates and dips, the slight cambered nature of some of these corners. It just adds to it that little bit more. It's going to be really interesting to see how the drivers manage here, and especially what that might do to some drivers' approach to this race based on their championship standing.
Absolutely. The championship standings now on your screen. Lewis Ward leading the way by 20 points from Niles Core. But would you look at that from Niles back? Between himself, James Holman, Callum Brandt and Dominic Brennan, only separated by 8 points for second in the championship. Lewis could take the title tonight. He needs to outscore Niles by 5 points and outscore James Holman by 2 points. And basically, to stay in the fight, you need Callum Brandt scoring at least 2 points more than Lewis and Dominic Brennan scoring 3 points more than Lewis. So we'll keep our eye on that. Ed and I have a little spreadsheet that we look at throughout the whole evening, and we'll keep an eye on those points and how they progress. In the Teams Championship, it's still close as well, with only 22 points between RD Simsport, Apex Racing Academy and Spontex CDM Esports Scourers as well. So there's plenty still to fight for here, Ed, and it's going to be exciting to see what the drivers make of it and what potential differences in approach we see from some of them out there tonight.
Yeah, definitely. You can imagine the likes of Callum Brandt and Niles Core will be out there racing very hard to try and get themselves maximum points this evening. Lewis Ward might be, well, a little bit more okay to let them have the position should it come to it in the race, obviously with his advantage. If he goes, say, into the final race of the season with about a 15-point gap, that should be enough for him. But again, it's all about picking your battles smartly and not fighting for things too hard. Obviously, it would help him greatly if he was to get that bonus point of qualifying to make solos chasing behind them a little bit harder. As that could be a interesting sign of things to come, with Lewis Ward struggling just a little bit through the left-hander. It's a bit off camera. You're slightly unsighted on the way in.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. The car can sort of grip up halfway around there, and sometimes if you go into a long sweeping left like that without the car being in the right gear, it can feel horrible, because if you do snatch a gear downwards, it can lock up the rear axle and just throw the rear end around, especially in a mid-engine car like the McLaren. James Holman is another one that's going to be up there trying to chase for championship points in these final moments of the season. I do apologise, by the way, if there's any frame rate issues. Literally, as Lewis was going through a bit of a spin there, I've just had a notification from NVIDIA GeForce in the bottom right of my screen saying that game-ready drivers are available, and I think to force me to do the update, it's going to kill my frame rate for the rest of the stream, so thank you. Simon Povey, second place at the moment, though, Ed, with his teammate Dominic Brennan at the very top. Simon jokingly said that he was amazed to see that him and Dom both put in some laps this week, because they do often turn up quite late without much preparation. But it seems like it's really working for them at the moment. Between the two of them, they're nearly 2/10 clear of Callum Brandt at this moment in time for Spontex CDM Esports Scourers.
Yeah, prepared Simon Povey's a dangerous Simon Povey, and one that's very difficult to get the better of. We saw a good pace from him last time out at Hockenheim, but he wasn't able to really convert that pace into a good result. He's going to be looking for better here today at a circuit that last time we were here, he again struggled to perform. It was the pit entry that was his undoing, and that's something that I think the drivers need to be very careful of.
Absolutely they do, yeah. It's a very, very picky one here at this circuit. On the way into the pit lane, there is a very clear white line and a big sort of painted section that you cannot go over as a driver, and it really does pick a very specific point of it that it allows you to get away with and doesn't allow you to get away with. So you need to be very, very careful at those moments. We've got Ben Gregory back out on circuit this evening. He missed the previous round at Hockenheim. We've got a few drivers tonight, unfortunately, not able to make it. So we're down to a grid of 23 cars, but still we've got a lot of the guys at the very sharp end really hoping to make the most of this evening's races. Looks like there might be a bit of an update to the RD Simsport spec maps on their cars. For some reason they look a lot lighter than usual on my screen, but I'm not sure if that's something they've changed at their end. But I
think it's showing up on my end as well. It looks a little bit more brightly coloured, whereas I think Callum's is mapped all over. That was
his is a lot more matte. It's almost like that chalkboard effect, but the two RD Simsport 2 cars have got a more satin finish, and they look gorgeous for it as well. It really does bring out the colours a bit more in the design. It's very, very tasty, that is. So if that is a purposeful update from RD Simsport, we very much approve, I'd say. Looks great.
The blue, I think the blue sort of paint splatters on there as well look sort of almost a bit more glossy, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. Shows a bit more reflection as well, and there's a pattern within the pattern, actually, where you can see this sort of hexagonal, almost like a camouflage pattern underneath, which I really, really do love. And that's the thing, just a difference in a spec map can make such a change to a livery. I mean, we look at Mark Johnston's glorious dark blue Aston Martin here, which was, I think, done by Gilles Gardner. I think it was one of the cars that he designed for Mark. And just having the right bits in gloss and having the right bits done metallic just really highlights the proper parts of the car where they should be painted and where they shouldn't. Sometimes you'll see a spec map, and I mean, this is a great example, the Chicane Online Racing BMW that Niles Core drives. But some of them, sometimes people go too matte with it, and like I mentioned, that chalkboard effect, if you go full matte on iRacing, it just doesn't look natural, it doesn't look real. It's like that, I can't remember what that material's called, that they were wrapping cars in for a while, that literally reflects...
black.
Yes, it reflects no light whatsoever, and if I'm honest, it looks tossed. So I don't know why people do it, but when you do go naturally satin, like this sort of colour, or that sort of finish, it just looks proper. It looks a lot more realistic as well, like you would see it on a real race car, and it highlights the proper parts of your livery. So that's livery talk done with for at least a week, I think.
And no, maybe until later on today, if the race dies down a bit, then we'll get back onto livery talk. But I think here at the Red Bull Ring, it's very difficult to have a boring race.
Absolutely. We've had many exciting races here before, whether it be in Formula 1, whether it be in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, or any other championships that we've both had the pleasure of commentating on. So I look forward to seeing what people can do here this evening, but it's about to go quiet out on circuit for just a moment. The beautiful scenery here at the Red Bull Ring. I've stood at this very location. There's a reason I put this camera here. I stood here with Chris McCarthy, my very good friend and commentator, when the Formula Regional European Championship was on, when I was out there doing Clio Cup Europe, actually. And it was a day like this. There was a bit of cloud in the sky, although not anymore, thanks iRacing. And it was just the most amazing sight. GT3 cars as well going through there and making a racket. It was just one of the real pinch me moments of my career, and honestly, it's such a cool place. If you ever do get the chance to visit the Red Bull Ring, even just as a spectator, and not even get into the paddock, just go and witness the place. It is an absolute marvel. One of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, even just in Spielberg around it, even if you don't go to the circuit. It's just awesome, really awesome. But the drivers now make their way out of this very tricky pit lane, actually, Ed. We mentioned the entrance to the pit lane being quite tough, but the exit is as well, isn't it? You have to have all your wits about you there.
Yeah, because you do get up to decent speed, don't you? Plenty of speed to accelerate into, and then all of a sudden you've got to get back on the anchors. And I think we heard a few times, especially in Formula 1 actually, that I can't remember what round it was now, but I know we went here obviously earlier this year with one of the rounds of the Formula 1 World Championships, and some drivers were actually being a little bit too overzealous on the pit exit, and a few got caught out of that in the race.
Yeah, it really is easy to overdo it, and obviously in cars like this you can get away with a bit of contact with the wall, maybe a little tap here and there if you do scrape it on the exit. But in Formula 1, in the little Pro Mazdas, they were touching the wall and it was completely writing off the suspension and finishing their race for them. So you have to be very careful with it, depending on what sort of car you're in. But everybody now out on circuit, stuttering frame rate aside. Cars are looking very beautiful indeed. And Rob Sutherland in the chat saying the boring answer is Guy's been doing some spec map work ahead of the upcoming WSCC season. Well, I must say, Rob, they look absolutely spiffing, darling, and I really, really do like it. There's Rob in his number 58 Aston Martin as well. Very subtle design on Rob's car. It almost looks like it's fully stealth matte black, but it does have this dark green pattern to it as well. Looks very menacing. Good to see Free Mem UK, I think it is. I could never decide where the word starts and finishes. Should be good, some good racing, they say. And Marty Kenyon in the chat saying getting a lot of oversteer in the Aston. Might see some McLarens off later in the race. Interesting to hear that the Aston is being oversteery. I'm sure that's something they'll probably have all been praying for up to this point of the season.
Yeah, and we actually caught a few glimpses of at Hockenheim where it was that one right-hander when you come up towards the Mobile 1 curve, where they were having some issues with the car over-rotating. So maybe it's certain circuits it over-rotates, and other ones it just does anything but rotate. It can be
it's a
tricky beast to do to get behind it. I mean, even dragsters have top speed. I mean, in the Aston, well, I think doesn't really have much of that either. It's, again, not the favoured car, but hopefully with the new season for iRacing we'll be seeing it back to winning ways. Maybe it needs a driver familiar with the Aston to get back behind the wheel, but I think I'm married to the box, the comms box, so nothing going that way for me. I'll be staying here. You can't get rid of me that easily, Chaz.
I was just thinking that, is he going to plan a comeback here? But no, to be fair, Ed, wherever you may be, whether it's on the circuit or the commentary box, we'll always be glad to have you around, buddy. And right now, I'm sure that there's a lot of drivers that are glad that you're not out there right now and near the top of the times, to be fair. We've got John Barnes on our screens here. Apologies for the frame stutters, by the way, everybody. It seems to be when the car pans quickly through frame. It really is just kicking its own head in. Paul Goffin's gone fastest in the McLaren at the moment for Sim Racing Magazine Racing Team A. Ben Gregory's gone second. John Barnes now goes second ahead of John Roberts and then Fausto Pinto. Ryan Penny back.
All the boosted cars together on there.
Of course they are. Always. What about Lewis Ward and his teammate Dan McCauley? They're going to be working together once again. Mark Johnson's gone fastest in the Aston Martin. Quick, someone screenshot it. 1 minute 38.5 as Rob Sharp then goes 1:38.237 in the Porsche. Here come the Apex Racing Academy guys, needing a solid lap each here. You've got to be so careful of track limits. Sutherland goes 7th. What do you reckon here, Ed? 1-2 for these?
Should be. It was a very nice exit from Lewis Ward, but no time actually being set by Dan McCauley. Must have invalidated it somewhere through that final sector. As Simon Povey is going to probably take back provisional pole position.
Oh no.
No, he doesn't actually. No time being set, but Dominic Brennan can go up onto the front row. So the driver's pushing very hard. He can easily pick up a 1X through the first corner and also through turn 3 on the exit.
Here's Ben Gregory with Niles Cole right behind him in the BMW, the menacing BMW M4 GT4, big beefy car. I hope we get to see it for at least another season here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, because I can't bear to look at the front of the new one. Round the final corner he goes, tucked right up behind Ben. He might have lost a bit of time there. He's not going to touch the back of him because that would invalidate the whole performance. Let's see where Niles Cole ends up. Second fastest, a 10th off, and 0.08 of a second quicker than Brennan. Then Goffin goes up into 4th place again. Good solid lap that by Paul Goffin. Then we've got John Roberts crossing the line in his gorgeous Mercedes. He now goes up to 10th position. Martin Kenyon improving as well up to 13th. Ryan Penny going 14th. No times though from Povey, Brandt, McCauley, Christopher Smith even. He's actually just crossing the line right now. Where does he go? 4th fastest for him. About half a second off. And then we've still got other drivers setting times. Callum Brandt now next up. Sharp goes 4th fastest. Brandt goes 3rd and James Holman goes 2nd. So the RD guys working together once again here.
I was waiting to see where James Holman was going to go because he did set a time earlier, but it was not representative whatsoever. It was a 42, so it was not really on pace. But he's certainly got a little bit more beneath his wings now. For Simon Povey, this should be a time that will be on the board and going fastest. And yes, it is 1:37.1, perilously close to the 1:36s, which is really incredibly hard for the drivers to overcome. So while he's in clear air, no slipstream whatsoever, which just shows the type of driver that Simon is, where he's incredibly quick. Maybe sometimes he's actually slower with slipstream because it throws him off of his marks and means that he can't keep going with the same muscle memory that he drills into himself during these practice sessions. He's so consistent, so it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to hold on to that pole position or if Lewis has any reply.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what sort of changes that the drivers can make to their approach and see what they can get out of their cars for this sort of session. There's a lot of pressure on these guys in qualifying because it is only a 15-minute session as opposed to having a longer one for an hour-long race. We did used to have half an hour qualifying, but if I'm utterly honest with you, it just dragged on for ages, didn't it, really, in the first couple of rounds. Heinz Mayer just improves and goes 12th fastest at the moment. We've got 3 McLarens, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Callum Brandt just improving as he crosses the line, but it's still 5th place for him. No, I don't think it was a valid time, was it?
No, it wasn't. It looked pretty quick as well. I think a purple first sector, improvement in the middle sector, but nothing through the final one. So it's all about just towing the line, as Dominic Brennan could be on to improve on his teammate Simon Povey, who has a purple final sector. Is he going to get underneath the 6s? No, he doesn't. Dominic Brennan edges ever closer to pole position, but it's just slipping out of reach. And with that, that's going to be an invalidation. He pulls over and aborts the lap coming into the pits. Get some fresh tyres on for the second half of this qualifying session.
Absolutely does. Very close at the top then between the two teammates at Spontex CDM Esports Scourers. Lewis Ward third ahead of James Holman and Callum Brandt. And that's important because really he needs to just... I mean, Lewis could finish exactly how this is now and be champion because he's outscored Niles Core by enough and he's going to have scored more points than Callum Brandt by enough as well. And James Holman just one place behind him. It would make the difference. So we'd have to wait and see, I suppose, how this is all going to finish. Obviously there's still a long way to go yet this evening. We've still got an hour-long race to go. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Still, it's all very close. Very, very good fun between these guys. And right now, it's less than a second separating the top 11 cars in this qualifying session. There is Rob Sharp around the final corner, floats it over the curb. Holman does a purple final sector, moves up to 4th place. That's kind of important for the championship. Sorry, 3rd place. Yes, I can't count. Sorry, Ed. But yeah, that could in itself be important for the championship. It's those little differences in qualifying that can make a bigger difference further down the line.
Yeah, if Lewis Ward starts out of position further back into the mid-pack, that could be a dangerous place if you're trying to defend your championship and especially defend his championship lead. Lewis Ward, obviously, let's not forget, was last season's champion, looking to defend the title. It's going to be very tricky to do so, even with the advantage he has, because the level of driver fighting with him is just that high that they'll be there to just instantly capitalise on any misstep he makes. So he has to be faultless from now until the final race.
Yeah, he really does. He has to just keep his wits about him. That's going to be the phrase of the end of the season, is just having your wits about you, really. You've got to pick your battles and know who to attack and when to attack them. As Niles Core goes back up into 3rd position in the BMW, a great lap by him, 1:37.250. But it's looking similar to how practice looked earlier on, actually, with the two hedgehogs at the front, the Spontex CDM Esports Scourers cars leading the way, Simon Povey and Dominic Brennan. Then they've got about a 10th over everybody behind. It's a little bit further spread out past that point, but still now it's 12 cars less than a second off pole. And if you look down even in 21st place with Rob Sutherland, there's only 2 seconds separating the field there, so it's very, very close once again between this entire pack. And this is one thing we love about this championship. The level gets better and better and better, but it continues to be close all of the time. And I think Oliver Carwadine just improved slightly there, but didn't move up a position. Ralph Mayer has now put his first valid time on the board and gone up to 18th, just ahead of Ryan Penny. But Heinz Mayer a few places further up, 15th at the moment for him. We've got only Johns, the two teammates at Boosted Motorsport, John Roberts and John Barnes, 13th and 14th. Barnes was happy with a top 10 finish a couple of rounds ago at Donington, wasn't he, Ed, in that McLaren? And I think right now he's going to be happy to be in 14th. Sure, we've got less drivers on the grid, but still, you've got to be in it to win it.
I mean, absolutely, as Lewis Ward has a purple first sector, this could be in a pole position. If he can just nail this final sector, you can see having to be very careful of track limits, especially through here, the final corner. Really nicely over on the inside, allowing him plenty of room on the exit. That's certainly within the limits there. Is it going to be enough for opposition? I don't think it was there by Lewis. Just more gearing up for this time to be a proper flying lap. And again, that's just, I think, something you can get away with. The wheels did dip over the sausage curb on the exit, but as long as you don't go significantly over, you can dip the wheels. As long as they sort of stay touching the curb, I think you can get away with it.
We just saw how wide James Holman went through the final corner, and that lap still counted. 3 of the RD cars inside the top 6 now. Holman, Brandt and Christopher Smith. They'll be hoping to work together as this race goes on, as he gives a bit of a buzz to Dominic Brennan and Simon Povey as they go through. Those two clearly gearing up to work on a final slipstreaming lap together in the 2 very shiny teal McLarens. Just making their way up now to the second corner. This is the point now, though, where you are going to see the drivers working together in different ways when they maybe haven't before, because Simon and Dominic have almost famously worked separately to each other, haven't they, in qualifying sessions up to now. But now the team's championship is getting ever closer. They're really thinking about every little moment in these sorts of sessions.
Yeah, this is great. This is what they need to do on a circuit like this, where the slipstreaming can be the difference maker. It's Lewis Ward not seeing any improvements through the sectors. In fact, he's slowing down, I think, to get his teammate closer into the picture. You can see the rate of knots that Dan McCauley's going at. He's now caught up to his teammate, so Lewis Ward is going to have to stamp on the loud pedal and go for one final attempt at pole position. One that would obviously see him with an extra championship point, which will be all important for his defence of the title.
Yeah, he's doing a great job of it, isn't he, is Lewis Ward this season. He's had another exemplary championship up to this point, but he just needs to be careful not to overdo it in these final rounds. It's very easy to get flustered by what's going on around you. He's 20 points clear. You get 25 points for a race win. There's been 8 races so far this season, and he's had 6 podium appearances. He's had 3 second places, 2 third places, and only 1 race win. Now, there's drivers behind him in the championship standings that have got as many as 3 race wins. James Holman and Callum Brandt, both teammates at RD Simsport, 3rd and 4th in the championship, have 3 race wins apiece. But their other consistency elsewhere and rounds where they may not have competed just hasn't been the same. And actually, they've both got a theme as James Holman and Callum Brandt, because the only times both of them have been on the podium have been race victories. So they haven't finished 2nd or 3rd in any other races other than when they've won.
I think Lewis Ward has been pretty much on the podium most races that he's competed, hasn't he? I think he's got a over 50% conversion rate, which is so important in a championship like this when the drivers are so quick. You can have different race winners every single time. As long as you're consistently up there fighting and getting those points, it can really make all the difference in the world. I think as well, actually, in terms of pole position bonus points, I'm pretty sure Lewis Ward has the most. Obviously, that might be something to check if you've got the ability to look for that, Chaz. But I think Lewis Ward has taken the most amount of poles this season and could be trying to go for one more. I don't think he will be, unfortunately. No time coming up onto the board. Or no improvement, rather. So Lewis Ward will be starting 7th at best. Dan McCauley in 9th. Not the qualifying session that Apex Race Academy were hoping for whatsoever.
No, it really wasn't. It was definitely not what they had planned. What about these two? Simon Povey's done a purple Sector 1 and a green Sector 2. He's really on the money at the moment, is Simon. Is this going to be what they call shattering the morale? There's a very famous video of Michael Schumacher where he goes out in a qualifying session where he's already on pole and outdoes everybody by a long shot. Simon Povey canes it on that final lap. And what time did he do? It comes over. It says it's 2:01.7, so clearly wasn't a valid time at all. I think he was just trying to help Dominic Brennan out. Dominic ends up 3/300ths of a second off pole, but I think that is going to be it for the session. Andy Marston crossing the line, and Lewis Ward has 3 pole positions so far this season, but that is going to be, I think, Simon Povey's 2nd pole position this season. That's his 3rd, actually, so he matches Lewis Ward there, but very well done to Simon. And very well done to Spontex CDM Esports Scourers, because it's not often we have a front row lockout in this championship, Ed, but they've done it.
Yeah, and it's great to see Dominic Brennan able to keep up with Simon Povey. We know, obviously, that having Simon as your teammate is an absolute nightmare for any driver, but even though Dominic Brennan, it sort of puts him almost to shame, and it makes us forget about what a top driver he is, and the performance he was putting in when he joined, I think, later on in the first season. He was really up there, and he's been going from strength to strength. It's going to be great to see him hopefully take his first race victory in Spontex CDM Esports colours. Maybe here tonight if he can get one over on his teammate.
We'll have to see. It's going to be an interesting battle between the two to see whether they do fight or whether they work together. Obviously, I'm very happy, but still, the rest of the field will know that having the two of them right at the front, there's nobody between them now to pick apart what they're going to do over the course of this race. So it's going to get very, very interesting as this all goes on. Again, let me just apologise for the frame stuttering and the seemingly low frame rate for this evening. I'm not sure if that does have anything to do with the GeForce drivers wanting updating as of right now, but still, hopefully, doesn't affect the rest of the evening. Let's have a look then at our grid for round 9 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Simon Povey and Dominic Brennan line up on the front row of the grid, one of the only front row lockouts we've had in the championship. Niles Corr and James Holman make up row 2, with Callum Brandt and Christopher Smith up there in 5th and 6th. All of those guys hoping to stay ahead of the man in 7th, Lewis Ward, who is hoping to take his 2nd title tonight. Rob Sharp is 8th on row 4, with Dan McCauley backing up his teammate in 9th. Guy Edwards is 10th, ahead of Ben Gregory, and then Paul Goffin on row 6. Behind them we have John Barnes and John Roberts, the only Johns duo, on row 7. Then it's Heinz Mayer and Rob Sutherland, 15th and 16th. Mark Johnson is 17th, ahead of Martin Kenyon in 2 Aston Martins. Then it's Ralph Mayer and Ryan Penny rounding out the top 20. Fausto Pinto is next up, ahead of Oliver Carwadine, with Andy Marston, the boss man, rounding out the field in 23rd. Quite an important night for the championship though, really, Ed, because the grid is a lot smaller with just 23 cars here. Survival is going to be more key than ever because you get points all the way down to 20th, so we're only going to get 3 drivers that don't score.
Yeah, and that could make the fight in the mid and lower field really intense. Some of the drivers going all out to get those all-important championship points, because while we do like to focus on the top spots of the championship, the competition is so tight and fiercely fought throughout pack that the drivers will be well aware of the reduced numbers and what's at stake here tonight. But I'm so intrigued about this qualifying session and what the fallout could be, because Lewis Ward starting this far back properly in the mid pack where we said he didn't want to be. He's going to have to, like you say, have his wits about it and just be incredibly cautious going into turn 1 up the inside, so it might make it a little bit more comforting for him. Still some scope to fight back in this race. But Niels Corr, he's exactly where he needs to be, just behind the 2 Spontex CDM Esports cars, just able to let them do their own thing. As long as he sticks with them, he'll be able to try and reduce that deficit to Lewis Ward in the championship standings.
Here we go then, everybody. The penultimate round of Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge Season 3 is underway from the Red Bull Ring, and Callum Brandt gets a terrible start. He tried to get the run on the guys ahead and it didn't work, and look at the teamwork by the 2 Spontex CDM Esports Scourers cars. Beautiful stuff off the start as it all bunches up behind them. Callum Brandt down the inside of Niles Corr. They need to be careful not to make contact through there, especially bouncing over the curb. It's very easy to do. I think Guy Edwards has actually fallen prey to that, and he's had a bit of a bounce over the curb, but everyone keeping it nice and tidy on the way up. James Holman's made his way up into 3rd place ahead of Niles Corr. Niles has dropped back quite a lot and he's got the battles going on behind him, Ed.
Yeah, Rob Sharp trying to go around the outside of Lewis Ward into turn 3. They go side by side. Lewis Ward having to hold the line, and while he's going to get slipstream off of Callum Brandt, you can see that Rob Sharp's getting his own bit of help by Christopher Smith. They're going to try and box themselves in together, but look at this, a little cheeky move up the inside that gets covered off, and now all the way around the outside. Can Rob Sharp get the power down? They can't overtake Lewis Ward, but he can still keep Dan McCauley at bay. So the first few corners nice and clean out in front. Just look at that diving up the inside. Is that Ben Gregory going for a little overtake on Guy Edwards? It is, but the momentum's just not quite there. In the 113 booster Draycott car, he's still going side by side. Actually, the space is given by Guy, and now look at the other boosted cars coming into the picture. That's John Barnes, the rear end of his car that goes to short, coming into shot. Defensive driving anything from bend and anything to keep John at bay. And they sort of sort themselves out, as I think that was Rob Sharp just getting passed by Dan McCauley there into the second to last corner. It was.
Yeah, Dan down the inside makes the move stick as well. He now moves up into 8th position. Lewis Ward moves up into 6th. So both of the Apex Racing Academy cars have gained 1 place each over that opening lap. But at the front of the field, it's Spontex CDM Esports Scourers 1 and 2, with Simon Povey leading Dominic Brennan. James Holman sits behind them as the rest of the field try and sort out whatever the hell's going on. Martin Kenyon's had another typically brilliant start on that first lap. He's gained 3 places already, and now he's in the thick of this with Goffin on his left. Sorry, Goffin on his right. He was nearly on his left then with the contact they were about to have. He's trying to go around the outside, late on the brakes into turn 2. Goffin's gone deep. Oh, I didn't think that he knew they were 3 wide there, and he turned in not knowing Roberts was there. They all get stuck together, and it's all a bit messy on the exit as well. Ryan Penny gets held up by Paul Goffin. Just one of those moments there where there's a bit of miscommunication, I think, there, Ed.
Yeah, the driver's unsure of what the other one was doing, and then it just created more of an issue than it needs to have been. Rob Sharp's really starting to struggle now as well. John Barnes, he's stuck on the exit, needs to reverse out of the way. which he does. Try and find a gap to slot himself back into, which he as well does, but it's so tricky because now that's put him all the way to the back of the field. The mistake early on really has harsh consequences. That's a shame for John because he was going well as trying to maybe fight for a top 10 finish.
Yeah, he was trying to push, wasn't he? And hoping for whatever he could get out of this, because it's not a championship that he's attended every round of this season, so he was trying to make the most of every single one. And unfortunately that's not worked out for him this time round. A little bit of a blink in and out there for Callum Brandt, just ahead of Dan McCauley. Dan and Lewis are definitely pushing this time round though. They're certainly making their intentions clear. Fastest lap of the race as well by Lewis Ward. There you go, there are the intentions. Callum Brandt blinking in and out quite a lot here in front of Dan. It's not going to go down well at all. Dan's already had one RD car blinking in and out in front of him this season when it was James Holman at Daytona. It was obviously a bit of an issue for them because when you are that driver that's sat behind the other, it's so difficult to try and overtake. You really can't push past somebody because you never know where their car is going to reappear. Guy Edwards, nice and smooth down the inside of Rob Sharp. That was beautiful by Guy. Great respect as well by Rob to leave the room. Ben Gregory's in there. We've got Rob Sutherland going past Mark Johnson. This inter-Aston Martin battle with Heinz Mayer behind. These two have actually both gained 3 places now in this race, as Mark is now all over the back of Rob. Is he going to go left? Is he going to go right? No, I think he's just going to push him down the back straight into the right-hander. Johnson goes for the move. Rob gives him the room around the outside. Then it gets a bit pinchy on the exit. I think there was a little bit of a touch there, actually, between the two. No flashing of the lights from Rob, as we often see with the drivers. That's how you communicate your displeasure with whatever said other driver has done. But Rob sticking with him right now and just hoping that the front of that Aston Martin is as menacing as it can be in the mirrors of car number 11 in front of him. We'll go back further up the order though, because teammate of Rob Sutherland, or stablemate I should say, at RD Sim Sport 2, Christopher Smith, has got his rear view mirror full of that McLaren there of reigning champion and hopeful 2-time champion Lewis Ward.
Smith is going to be doing all he can to help James Holman's championship fight out though. Obviously, while they are teammates, they are all part of the RD Simsport family. So anything one driver can do to help the other one out will be, you can imagine, done. This will maybe look for a move up the inside. He gets the run hard onto the brakes, trying to get the turn in and done nicely. Needs to obviously be cautious to leave the space on the exit, which he does. That does compromise this run all the way down towards the next corner, but the acceleration of the McLaren is such that he's able to get the move made regardless. As that was a little bit of a cheeky move there. I thought the two Crockery Direct cars were going to come together, the Orris Racing purple machines of Ralph Meyer and Ryan Penny. Meyer actually looking for a move on Martin Kenyon. Aston Martin struggling with top end speed. Porsche looking for a move around the outside, really opening the corner up nicely for a bit of a switchback manoeuvre potentially. Is there an overlap? I think there might just be, that's just going to get snatched off, I think. Yeah, so they sort themselves out. And look at that cheeky little dive up the inside. I think Martin Kenyon saw it late, left a bit of room, but then realised that there wasn't an overlap and went back to take the apex. Just shows, like you say, how intense these battles can be in the midfield. Well, they try those cheeky little moves to try and unsettle the other drivers. And again, a bit of an overlap here between Martin Kenyon and Ralph Meyer up the inside in towards the second to last corner. So difficult to hang it around the outside, and I don't think he can. So it's Martin Kenyon having to concede. Is he to Ralph Meyer? Ralph gets those ahead. There's a bit of contact on the exit. Careful, they don't come together. Oh, dearie me. They weren't given enough racing room at all. And that's been Martin Kenyon come out certainly the worst for wear. But both of them are going to lose just bucketfuls of positions there. Puts on for Cowardine up into 19th place and sees Ralph Meyer taking the final point scoring position. I think actually he's going to give it back to Martin Kenyon. I think we might see those positions swap around again. It was Ralph just not leaving any space on the exit whatsoever.
Yeah, Martin,
car was still there.
He didn't want to clip the grass, did he? Because at that sort of point, the car is just going to spin around on you. So
I think later we do see the positions invert. I think we do that Ralph Meyer does give up the position to Martin. It's just on the exit of this corner. I think Ralph keeps it nice and slow, pulls over to the right-hand side. left-hand side of our shot, but the right-hand side of the circuit. And Martin Kenyon retakes the position, albeit down in 20th and not, to say, I think 16th, which was what they were fighting for.
Yeah, it's a shame to see that, because before that the battling was absolutely immense. But this is the thing, you know, these drivers, they push the envelope a little bit more, a bit further down the order. There's less to lose in terms of championship points at that stage of the field, so the guys do get a little bit more flamboyant, but that's what makes it so entertaining a bit further down there. You know, they do go for those cheeky little moves, because they think at the end of the day they're not going to stick with these guys at the very top end of the order, so they know that they can compromise their own race in the short run to obviously lose a little bit of time for the sake of maybe gaining a position in the long run. Ralph Mayer, though, is actually now into the pit lane. I'm not sure if he got some sort of damage from that, or whether he's decided to get out of traffic and then try and just have his pit stop early. They will usually do 2 pit stops in this championship. For those of you that haven't seen the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge before, we have a 40% fuel limit on all the cars in this championship. We use the standard iRacing setups, which they use for the IMSA Sprint fixed layout, and all of the drivers have to just pick their car and just deal with what they are given. Basically, they get the baseline setups and they get 40% fuel, so it promotes a bit of strategy as the season goes on. It's always very entertaining for us to watch. Some of the drivers have said that they want the format to change slightly, but we'll have to see what can be done about that, because to be honest, Ed, from where we are up here in the commentary box, I think it's great because people are forced to fuel save. They are forced to think about it more than just sprinting away based on raw pace. You know, it shakes up the race a little bit, because the fact that it's not just down to how fast you are, there's more involved here, isn't there?
How many times have we seen the races won on strategy? The man currently in 3rd position is a master of saving the fuel and taking just the right length of time in the pits to come out in front at the final stop to go on and win the race. He's very clever about it, but also knows how to manage his pace to do exactly what he needs. Speaking of exactly what he needs, Lewis Ward needs to maybe get ahead of Nils Gore if he wants to fully put to bed any chances of a championship fight in the final round of the season. But knows that if he is to go for the move, Nils Gore will be very harsh with his defence, because what else does he have to lose?
Well, that's it. How much have you got to lose at this point? Lewis could just sit there, like you say, just take those points, be right behind Niles Gore and James Holman in the current position that they're in. None of them got a point for qualifying because Simon Povey took that away from them. With Lewis currently in 5th position, he's on to score 16 points. Car ahead is Niles Gore, he's going to get 18 points, and then James Holman will get 20. That would mean that still Lewis is 21 ahead of Holman and 18 ahead of Gore, so it would go down to the final round of the championship. But it's going to be very easy for Lewis to win it if that is the case. He just basically needs to finish in the top few positions, or maybe even just something like the top 10. It says on the bottom of the car there, do the roar on Niles Gore's car. The
that
Shrek
was what it
meme.
was.
That's what it was, yeah, we'll go back to it. Look, do the roar. Not quite sure what that's in reference to from a team's perspective, but still, very funny moment in cinema history, I'm sure you'll all agree. It's something that everybody finds funny. But right now, I don't think Lewis is finding the back end of that BMW very funny at all. He's just wanted to get past the bloody thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to roar past when that BMW's got so much straight line speed. It has to be done onto the brakes more than anything else. That's one area that the McLaren has over the BM, is just the turn-in factor of it. Less of a barge in the case of Lewis Ward, but Nils Gore knows exactly how to manage the races as well. Let's not forget that he didn't have the best of qualifying performances at Hockenheim, but still came through to get a podium and some very good points, and to sort of reduce that gap to Lewis in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the drives that it's all about. You know, the championship can come down to 1 or 2 points sometimes in the end, and having those recovery drives from a bit of a poor qualifying or practice session, they're the ones that will really, really make you feel better about yourself, because you'll know that they're the ones that make the difference to the championship. And, you know, that extra 1 point or that little move that you made that maybe you thought at the time, I don't have to make this move, you know, there's no point me having this battle, I need to pick my battles. Sometimes when you look back on them, you think, you know what, yeah, I'm glad I went for that because I should have done, and that's what's made the difference to my championship. So as a driver, you can never pick up on it straight away, but it's all about carrying that momentum with you and that positivity.
And now that you mentioned recovery drivers, I want to just shine a spotlight on the driver who's the best at them, especially in the second season. Christopher Smith for RD Simsport 2 was a member of RD Simsport 1, basically the team that won the Teams Championship last season, with him and Callum Brandt both on track together here. And it was those recovery drives that really made the difference, wasn't it, for their championship? Remember, it was Sebring, where it was a great pit strategy that saw Christopher sort of down in sort of, say, 15th place or whatever languishing about, and then all of a sudden you see the position graph basically throughout the race suddenly shoot up and he finishes up inside the top 10. It was a great performance for Chris there, and it's something that then from then on out he's been able to do every single time he encounters any difficulties. He's really clever with the strategy, and I think it's probably the one that calls a lot of the shots of how they're going to fuel the cars, this, that and the other, because he was the one that also discovered quite brilliantly, if you remember last season at it was the Hungaroring,
yes,
the strategy to make it on a single pit stop. We saw them win the race.
Yeah, it was amazing that. We couldn't believe that they pulled that one off, but somehow the guys managed to do it, and it provided us with great entertainment and provided everybody with an opportunity to pick their jaws up off the floor. It was really, really good to watch. I'm intrigued right now by this Niles Core and Lewis Ward battle, because Lewis is sat right behind him, and it looks like Lewis is trying to make a move, but at the same time I think he's just subtly saying, come on, get on with it. He's going to be saving fuel by sitting behind him, but I'm not sure if sitting that close to him is going to make all the positive difference, because you do need to hang back a little bit sometimes to make the most of the slipstream, but I suppose if he's lifting off earlier rather than later, it'll be better for the fuel situation. So we'll have to see how this plays out for Lewis Ward later in the race. Simon Povey continues to lead. He's doing almost identical lap times to his teammate Dominic Brennan behind him. There was only a tenth of a second between the two of them that time round. James Holman sits behind them as well. He's still a few tenths of a second quicker per lap. So this top five is remaining very stable at the moment. It's a bit of a stalemate, but it's looking good for all of them so far in terms of big championship points. So we've just got to wait and see now who is going to rock the boat here, Ed, and who's going to be the one to either make a mistake or make a move on the car in front, because I'm sure Simon and Dominic would both be very happy for this to stay how it was. I know Holman will be thinking of the win here.
Yeah, he certainly will be, and depends obviously how they want to approach things. Simon could help Dominic out by keeping that gap to where it is, giving him the slipstream that makes it so difficult for James to then make an overtake when we get into what's called the draft train, the slipstream train. There isn't really a lot of scope for drivers further back to get the extra speed to make the moves into the braking zone, so that could be a way that Simon could help his teammate out. Obviously Simon does have his own race to think about. While he isn't in the picture for the championship, he still wants to win as many races as possible, and it would be a good way to redeem himself from last season here, to return to a circuit he's had so many difficulties at, and return and start the race win.
I just want to blow a bit more smoke up Lewis Ward's backside, to be honest with you, because obviously he leads the championship at the moment. He is the reigning champion as well, on the brink of getting his second title, but he's done it in a way where he's not won a race since round 3 of this championship. Callum Brandt took the first 2 wins of the season in amazing fashion, and then Lewis absolutely destroyed the competition at Daytona before we then came over to Europe for the remainder of the season. But he's not won since then, and that was God knows how long ago now. So the fact that he's just been so consistent is what is key here, and it's how he won last season. But he did that with a lot of race wins. He was either first or second. But this season there's been still that consistency amongst this ever-improving grid. But he hasn't had a win except for just one in round 3, and yeah, it feels like a long time ago, and that just confirms it.
Definitely, if we're talking about last season, it was essentially just 3 drivers fighting for the crown, wasn't it? Of Simon Povey, Callum Brandt, and then the eventual champion, that man Lewis Ward. Whereas now, I think if we go into a season 4 with this crop of drivers, the development that we've seen from the newcomers like James Holman and such, the likes of, as well, the evolution of Dominic Brennan on the scene, Niels Core coming through and being very impressive, we could easily have 5 or 6 drivers fighting for the crown next season should they all turn up. And
yeah,
I mean, how great would that be for the championship? It just shows though the level that we are now at as a championship with Sim Racer magazine, that the champion can win the entire thing based on just one race victory. Obviously, we don't know how the rest of the season is going to go. We might see Lewis Ward still win here tonight and make it 2 wins for the season, or maybe even win the final round as well. So it's all still up in the air. But like you say, it's just a testament to his consistency and the fact that he knows how to play the game in the championship, just keep scoring those good points.
Absolutely does. And that's what it's all about. Points mean prizes. Points mean prizes for Oliver Carwadine as well, because he just pulled off this very cheeky move on Paul Goffin, who had a poor exit out of turn 2 after trying a move on Ryan Penny, and he just said, thank you very much, I'll go by and take that in my BMW please. And he's made that work, as Lewis Ward has just got ahead, only just, of Niles Cord. Niles actually moving out of the way by the look of it there. I think he's decided that that is your position now to take, and I will sit behind you. I don't want to be the one that's providing you with an opportunity to save fuel. So let's see what Lewis Ward can do now that he is unhinged and unleashed from behind the tower block that is the BMW compared to the low-slung, sleek McLaren. No pit stops as of yet. They will be coming in the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes here at the Red Bull Ring for round 9 in Season 3 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Another quick shout to our wonderful sponsors here in the championship. You'll see their logos rotating through the top right of your screen. They are Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Blinds to Go, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Mydas Simulations. We're very grateful to have all of them on board once again for this wonderful championship, which is always oh so enjoyable. Great to be behind the scenes of as well. Great to get involved in. We do hope for a Season 4 of this championship, and I certainly will be looking at it at the end of this one. But it's one that is getting better and better all the time, Ed. It's something we do talk about a lot in these races, is the current crop of drivers and how they're always getting quicker. But I mean, even drivers like Rob Sharp, you know, Rob's been in this since day one. He's getting quicker and quicker in that Porsche. But the fact that his results this season aren't as high up isn't a testament to him getting slower. It's just the fact that the grid is getting better and better every single time we go racing.
Oh yeah, definitely. But another thing I want to touch on as well is what we talked about with Lewis Ward and his lack of race victories. That doesn't necessarily tell us the whole story. The stats can only say so much. Because how many times throughout this season has Lewis Ward potentially been in a position to take a race victory, but thought about the championship, thought about what it might do if he was just to back it off a little bit and settle for second or third, just to get those points on the board. We know that he has the pace to win those races, but I think it's less a signal about, oh, he's just quick but not quick enough to win. More of a case of he's been here and he knows exactly how to play it. And while he might give up a few race victories here and there, the fact that he's in the conversation so much and that he's smart enough to know when to fight and when to back out is why we see him with this 20-point lead coming into this the penultimate round of the championship. But I think if he's able to get ahead of James Holman in that league, will only keep growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. He needs to score 5 more points than Niles Core tonight to take the championship victory, and he needs to outscore James Holman by 2. As oh dearie me, there's been some form of mess go on there as the drivers of Oliver Carwadine and Ryan Penny have a little bit of drama, and then they get it back together. Dearie me, Fausto Pinto has turned into the side of Ryan Penny. The two of them, I think Ryan's got damage off that. The car didn't look like it wanted to behave there through the left-hander.
Fausto's got damage as well, I think, on the right-hand side of his car. That looks completely compressed in. Fausto not enjoying the side-on contact with another Orris Racing purple. This time Ryan Penny was obviously Ralph Meyer that we saw the contact with earlier on. I want to get a better look at that because it looked like I think both drivers could have taken steps to avoid that, shall we say. I've looked from the helicopter cam. This is Oliver Carwadine battling with Ryan Penny.
Yeah, this
Ryan
is where it all started, all the compression. They both went deep look into the corner. Ollie got out of it. Goffin said thanks very much. But then we have this moment here with Ryan Penny. I think that Fausto thought he cleared him. Fausto thought he was a headlock, and then Ryan goes later on the brakes. Oh, he's gone in deep, actually.
Yeah, he was clear, to be fair to him.
Yeah.
And then turns in for the corner, not expecting the lunge from Ryan. And all of a sudden, that's just left him with... I see that damage on the right-hand side of the car. I mean, he's still going. Both of them are. But with the pit stops just around the corner, they'll probably take their fast repair and get back up to pace. But again, Fausto Pinto, contact with an Orris Racing purple. He might be having words with their team boss afterwards.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of argy-bargy between them this season, almost like this sort of hidden rivalry. We've got Spontex CDM Esports Scourers still leading the way at the moment. It's very formal at the front of the field. It's Simon Povey leading the way, Dominic Brennan in second, James Holman third, Lewis Ward now up into fourth place after starting seventh. He's had a great race so far, and at the moment he's looking good for the championship, really. James Holman is, well, clinging on, but with Lewis being right behind him there, he's just doing enough to make it as easy as possible into the final round. Christopher Smith, one of the first cars in for a scheduled stop, which is interesting. We don't often see Chris in the pit lane before anybody else. He's usually one of the guys that makes the fuel last the most in that very pretty BMW. But he's now going to be dropping down the order for the moment and then getting back onto the circuit, hopefully for his sake, in some clear air. And this is the circuit where clear air is very important. It may not be the twistiest in the world. It may not be one that's got 19 or 20 odd corners, but it's not an easy circuit to follow the car in front at, because you sit in the slipstream the whole time. Yeah, sure, it's nice to save a bit of fuel, but in the actual twisty sections of this track, Ed, it's a real pain in the backside, isn't it?
It's so difficult. It's like it's two sort of circuits stapled together, isn't it? Because you get areas where this car is really strong with the acceleration zones, and then when you get through twisty, I mean, we saw what happened with Lewis Ward, didn't we, earlier on, just in practice, with Ben Gregory just coming through this corner right now. Left-hander, it's unsighted and slightly off camber actually as you turn in before then the corner begins to bend the way you expect it to. It's a bit of a nightmare for the drivers to really get adjusted to, but they do have plenty of time to rest themselves on the straights, which not a lot of drivers, not a lot of circuits give you that sort of luxury. Lewis Ward coming into the pits. It's going to be very pivotal for the completion of this race. Probably dropping back a little bit earlier than we expected, though. We thought he was able to save a bit more fuel because he was behind the likes of Niels Core and James Holman for so long.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that, actually. Lewis in, Rob Sharp and Guy Edwards also in, so that's three different manufacturers as well, so it's not a display of any specific car having more of a benefit. Rob Sharp as Guy Edwards overshoots his box. I think he's done that quite a bit this season, this guy. For some reason, he sticks out in my mind as one of the drivers that's done that. I'm really sorry if you're not, Guy, but there's just a few drivers that seem to do that quite often, as into the pits goes Fausto Pinto and Ryan Penny. They make their first scheduled stops. Lewis Ward on his way out. Are we going to catch him? No. He now comes out just in front of Carwadine and just in front of Christopher Smith. So that's not good, because he's going to be fed up of Matt Black BMWs by now. And Christopher Smith now is going to go for the move on the left-hand side. He's not sitting behind Lewis here because he knows that for his teammates in the championship, he needs to be a pest right now for Lewis. He needs to work against him. Let's see how this plays out in the next sort of stint or so, because that is not where he wanted to be. But then again, Christopher was in the pits for 6 seconds less than Lewis, so it makes sense that he's caught up like that. Could be another strategy call from Chris, you never know, but this is exactly what he needs to do now for Holman's sake. As he looks down the inside, he's just trying to fill the mirrors and annoy Lewis Ward at this stage. This is why it's difficult being the man in the lead of the championship. You have a target on your back.
He really does, and Chris Smith is going to be trying to take full advantage of Lewis Ward's maybe trepidation at this point of the race, not wanting to take unnecessary risks, because Niels Court carries on going. He's been able to save the fuel in his BMW, while the rest of the front runners come into the pits. Simon Povey, Dominic Brennan, James Holman and Callum Brandt all coming in, as will Dan McCauley. Dan might take a slightly shorter stop to help out his teammate get out into the lead of the race and control the pace, bring him back into the equation. That could be something that drivers might do throughout the course of the championship, sort of sacrifice their own race to help out their teammate, but of course doesn't need to do it too much, because Apex Race Academy still in with a shot of this team's championship.
They absolutely are, and it's short stops by the two Spontex CDM Esports Scourers cars. Look at that. They have a good 8-second advantage over Holman and Brandt. And there in the background is Lewis Ward. There's Christopher Smith right behind him as well. And where is Niles Core in all of this? Well, he's still out in front before having his first pit stop. But Simon Povey and Dominic Brennan have taken their short stop early on, so they're not giving other people behind them a chance to save fuel. You could just see the RD cars in the background for a moment there. This is a very open and obvious battle of strategy right now, Ed. This is not the case of some drivers doing what we think they might be doing, or, you know, thinking we've got an inkling. It's very clear what the intentions are now, and that's why it's exciting when we get to this first round of stops, because we have to continually sort of compromise where people are on track for the fact that they're going to have longer pit stops than others or shorter pit stops than others as Niles Core comes in.
It's going to be so difficult to catch up with Simon Povey and Dominic Brennan now. They were obviously the quickest drivers out on the circuit in qualifying, and they're going to try and keep that pace going to get the better of RD Sim Sport, chasing them down. James Holman and Callum Brandt basically together, trying to get one over on Simon Povey and Dominic Brennan, who are together up in front. It's as much of a battle of drivers out on track as it is a battle of the teams as well, which perfectly illustrates this teams championship that we've got going on. RD Sim Sport looking to try and retain the crown. Swantex CDM Esports Garros looking to take it back. Might be difficult for them to do so, of course. While they might be able to reduce the gap as it stands, I think we have had word that Simon Povey won't be able to make the final round of the championship, so they need to make as much progress as they can tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be difficult for Dom on the finale on his own. But still, I mean, Dominic Brennan's had another exemplary season. He's been fantastic all throughout. And just like he was at the end of Season 2 as well, even going back to Season 1, you know, Dom was an absolute star. He was great fun to watch. But at this moment in time, looking at Dom's record this season, he's only had 3 podiums, but he's not scored less than 12 points in a race so far in this championship, and that is 9th place. So he's been in the top 10 for every single race, and he currently finds himself up there in 5th in the standings, and that's not a fair representation really, because he's only 8 points off 2nd in the standings as well, so just shows you how close it all is. But that's why we love this championship oh so much. Here's another reason why: great battles throughout the field. We've got the 2 Myers making a sandwich, a Martin Kenyon flavoured sandwich right now, with Maya bread either side. And Martin is the only thing stopping them being together on track once again.
Yeah, he's always in the mix of this, isn't he? He's always in between the 2 Myers, battling away. It just shows that these little storylines that can develop throughout the course of a season, the drivers battling away with one another, as out in front, Simon Povey's actually breaking away from Dominic Brennan. They really need to work together. Simon might have to drop back just a touch to keep Dominic in the slipstream, to keep their lap times going as quick as they are, or as quick as they have been, because as soon as Dominic Brennan begins to drop back, you know that James Holman and Callum Brandt, they'll be able to smell blood in the water, and they will keep pushing hard as anything.
I think that this is going to be the push stint though for Simon and Dominic. I think they're just going at it now. I don't think they're thinking about saving fuel or slipstreaming or anything. They've taken their short stop. They know that they're going to pit before everybody else, so it's not about elongating this stint. They're just using this as the pace part of the race. And again, that's another element that we have to think about for these drivers, is that they have these stints where they will push more than in others, where they have their sort of all-out, go for it, full gung-ho stints. Sometimes we see them at the end of the race when the tyres are a little bit more destroyed, but doing it at this stage of the race means that the tyres have a little bit more life in them if they're not going to change them throughout the whole race. And they've obviously got less fuel in the tank as well, so they're just going to gun it completely, and we're going to get ultimate pace from these guys right now. They are a few tenths quicker than just about everybody behind them except for Lewis Ward in 5th place, who is matching them on pace right now in that number 1 McLaren.
Yeah, Simon and Dominic need to be careful for when they come into the pits, because likely coming in earlier than everyone else means that they'll be probably in traffic, more traffic than those that have pitted with or taken more fuel on board.
Oh.
So it might work against them. This is again just incredibly cagey stuff. You can just see Fausto Pinto up the inside of Ryan Penny. These were the 2 that had that incident earlier on in this race. Not the one that left the amount of damage that we're seeing on Fausto's car, but still the one that saw Ryan Penny take an early trip into the pits. It was, I think, Ryan that wasn't leaving enough space. Was it on the exit of the final corner? I think was.
No, you're thinking of
the incident.
You're thinking Heinz Mayer and Martin Kenyon earlier. Sorry, Ralph Mayer and Martin Kenyon. It was Ryan Penny and Fausto Pinto that had the accident coming into the last sector through the left-hander. Ryan tried to go back down the inside, went in very, very hot. And to be fair, I mean, Fausto, yeah, sure, he dived down the inside quite late into the right-hander there, but then Ryan wanted to move over on the brakes and sort of close him off a bit more. They were very lucky not to make further contact there, so they've both carried on. All of a sudden, Ryan has now latched himself onto the back of the BMW of Oliver Carwadine in front, and it looks so good on the brakes, that Porsche. It's one of the real strong points of that car, but you can really see that difference here, can't you? It's amazing.
Look, you can just see the difference in shape as well, don't you? The little Porsche struggling to put the power down, dropping away from the BMW, even though it's within the slipstream range. I think we might be getting deafened by the curb on the or on the way into turn 3. So loud, those curves, honestly. I'm not sure how and why the microphone is essentially put underneath the car to get the full effect of the noises.
It's to do with the distortion, I think, because for effect I add distortion to those cameras, and that's something you can control within iRacing, and when you do go over the curbs it just has the perfect tone to just be very, very loud indeed. And I don't know why, but it is completely garish, as right now we've
A
got
little wriggle there for Christopher Smith.
Yeah, into BMW battle here. Two very pretty cars against each other with two very solid drivers that do this car justice. This is great to watch.
Mills Court content to sit back and save fuel. Will obviously make his final stop all the shorter. But is it necessarily the right call to make? I think the only driver that knows is Niels at this moment in time. We can only speculate, but we've been doing plenty of that already. So maybe we need to shut up and let him get on with it.
Well, it's just great to watch, great to listen to in the BMW as well, yeah, because you're so high up in this car as well. You feel like you've got a lot more vision of what's going on around you, don't you? It's a great, great thing to ride on board with this BMW. I love it.
Actually, the elevation is a good point to bring up, because I think all of these GT4 cars are turbocharged, apart from, I think, the Porsche, which is naturally aspirated, which is why I think we've been seeing James, while he is quick on pace, struggling a little bit in the top end. Sort of with putting the power down. We saw it as well, actually, quite clearly between... Someone's sending a message on Steam. Go away. I thought I'd turn my notifications off. Sorry about that. I think it was... Who was it we were on board with earlier? It was Ryan Penny, wasn't it, with Oliver Carwadine just dropping back. Even though he's in the slipstream, the car at this altitude, it doesn't have the power.
Ryan's had a drama, I'm afraid, actually. I think he's going to hit the curb here and have a spin. Yep. The car was already going slightly, but then I think when he's just clipped that curb, and it's gone backwards into the wall, which you've got to be very careful about in the Porsche, of course. The engine is very far back in these machines. But Penny has now dropped about 9 seconds behind the cars ahead, so unfortunately not where he wants to be. I've just done a quick update, by the way, Ed, on the championship points, and we would still have 5 drivers in with a chance mathematically going into the finale. It would still be Lewis Ward leading the way by 21 points over James Holman, 1 point ahead of Niles Court, who is also going to be tied with Dominic Brennan, and then Callum Brandt 3 points back, still within mathematical chance of taking the championship as long as he scores maximum points. So there's still everything to play for in this championship here. Dominic Brennan's just done a purple sector 2, so all of these guys are racing like it is all still to play for because they know it is. I love it.
It's just brilliant to see. While you're doing that, I'm going to be looking through at the teams championship, because as it stands, I think RD Simsport will be extending their advantage definitely over Apex Racing Academy, and Spontex CDM Esports will be closing the gap down. So I'll be having a workout of all of the teams standings, but certainly RD Simsport looking very comfortable as it stands.
Yeah, it's looking good for them at this moment in time. It's looking good for these two as well at this moment in time. Mark Johnson's gained 4 places in this race, and John Roberts has gained 2. Biggest mover is actually Oliver Carwadine in that BMW. It's been great to have Ollie back in the field as well. Joined the championship partway through after we unfortunately had drivers have to park it for the season. He decided to go into the BMW just so there was another one on the grid, actually, he admitted to me. But he's been doing a great job of it and scoring consistent points. Actually, I'm just checking. I think he's scored points in every single round that he's raced in so far this season, has Carwadine. Unfortunately, he didn't score points last time out, but the first 3 appearances, he did score points. So continuing on in great fashion is Mr. Carwadine, as we need to go back further up to the front, because the 2 RD Simsport cars of James Holman and Callum Brandt are putting on a hell of a show and keeping it nice and close. They go past the 222 machine of Heinz Mayer, but these 2 RD Simsport machines are in close quarters right now, just working together bit by bit, as Niles Court and Christopher Smith have changed positions. They remain side by side. Lewis Ward disappearing off in front of them. Very close to contact. That could be championship changing stuff if there is contact, but there is not. Christopher Smith right up behind his rival and fellow BMW driver. And look at this already. Spontex CDM Esports Scourers into the pits. That's why Dominic Brennan was doing purple sectors, because the car was running on fumes.
So yeah, they were very, very quick, very light as well, which was why they were able to extend their advantage over these two. James Holman and Callum Brandt will be retaking the lead of the race, and now it's theirs to try and control, to wrestle back within their grasp this 1-2 finish. Is it going to be Spontex or will it be RD up at the top in the end of the night? Lewis Ward certainly trying to make his case to get up onto the podium as well. I'm not sure if it basically depends mainly on where Simon and Dominic emerge. If they get into traffic, that's going to really hurt their chances. Simon Povey's already out, you know. This could be very pivotal because there's going to be a nice gap in behind Ben Gregory. And look at that clear track in behind. No cars to worry about whatsoever. Simon's going to hopefully not get held up too much by Ben. Then we'll encounter the likes of Guy Edwards and Rob Sharp and Dan McCauley, who've all been battling intensely.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's this. I can't call if it's advantage Spontex or RD at this moment in time. It's so close.
I think one real winner from this, because of this stint now, is going to be Dominic Brennan. He can go to the end on this fuel. I don't think he's going to need to save anything because he was stationary for 22.8 seconds. It was about 0.6 of a second less than Simon, but Dominic's always pretty spot on with his fuel calculations, and I'm touching wood when I say that. But right now, he is the one with no car directly in front of him. Simon's got about 0.6 to Ben Gregory, and he's going to be quicker than him over this stint as well. He's just going to be hoping that Ben pits soon, I think, so he doesn't have to battle him. He doesn't have to get held up at all here. But really, Dominic's got loads of room behind. He's got loads of room in front. This is just qualifying session now for Dominic Brennan, and this is his chance to make this stint work. Potentially even catch up to Simon as well and take away some of that need to save any fuel, if there is any, because he can sit behind Simon and use the slipstream. While at the very front, RD Simsport do the same thing but in reverse now. They've got their longest stint here before they get their sprint at the end as Ben Gregory straight into the pits, so that works out beautifully for Simon Povey. Great stuff.
Oh, it is ebbing and flowing, isn't it? The momentum going now in the favour of Spontex. Simon Povey makes up another position into 9th, but up ahead, Guy Edwards, Rob Sharp and McCauley all there together. It's more certainly Rob Sharp and Guy Edwards. Dan McCauley has made a quick and hasty escape from this fight, more than anything else, which is good obviously for his race. But Simon just there looming in the background should these two come to blows. It's a wonderful looking car, those Spontex CDM Esports Scourers. Glad to see the livery changing over from the white of season 1 to the sort of teal, I guess, colour is what you describe it as for season 3. Not sure if Spontex have any other colours that they use for their products. Maybe we'll see another one, maybe a red one.
I don't know actually. I've not seen any other ranges of scourers or sponges or anything that use a different. It's more like the Spontex professional range, which is more of like an industry range of cleaning products. Is tended to be the one that's the teal and has the shiny packaging. So we'll have to see in future. But yeah, unfortunately, we do have a sort of Spontex CDM Esports team that is just the white cars as well. Jakub Szymanski and Gary Tall, the drivers of those McLarens this season, but unfortunately, due to their own circumstances, haven't been able to make all of the rounds. But obviously, wishing them all the best as well and thanking them for running the Spontex CDM Esports colours. It's not a team that has a sort of set roster or anything. You know, there's not a case of, you know, you drive for me and me only, you're not allowed to drive for other people. It's just if you know, I have good friends that race in leagues and leagues that I broadcast, and if I want to, I'll approach them about running my colours for that championship, and these guys have adopted that and run it very well. And Simon was really excited about getting Dominic to team up with him for this season, and right now the pair of them are making it work, and they're making it look wonderful as well.
Yeah, speaking of running your colours, actually, me and Simon were having a little chinwag the other day about getting you in the car for a trio attempt at the Petit Le Mans.
No chance.
Later this year. It'll be good fun, and hopefully we'll get you involved. I think Simon said he has he might be able to make time, and his high rating, he might be able to put us into a higher split, but we'll see about that. Might be excitement, to say the least.
You never know. Never say never, I always say. Never say never. And to be honest, there's a reason I'm a commentator, not a driver. I always say this. Into the pits then comes RD Simsport as one unit. James Holman and Callum Brandt in the 8-wheeled Porsche. As right now, though, they've done everything they can do in this stint and done it very, very well. Lewis Ward continues on, extending his stint further. He did have a longer stop than both of them last time, actually. Callum Brandt was only in for 17 seconds. So actually, I think he's been the one that's run a sort of shorter stint in the middle there. That's very intriguing. We'll have to see how that works out for him once the next stop is done. Niles Corr and Christopher Smith carry on. So too does Dan McCauley. He's having a bit of a lonely race at the moment, is Dan. He did give me an injury update earlier on as well. He says, I've got 1.5 arms tonight. I may have my shoulder. So I'm not quite sure how he's done that. But it's probably BMXing. Normally is. Still, Dan pushing on, and he's had a very solid season actually himself, to be fair, Ed. I know he's a very, very good friend of mine, is Dan. It's very evident by now as well, but still, I think regardless, he's had a very solid season compared to what we've seen in the past from him. You know, sure, he's made mistakes here and there, but there's not many drivers on our grid that haven't, is there?
No, there aren't, and like I say, it's dangerous, isn't it, for these drivers when they have had such consistent races that they can sort of get too focused on the consistency and not on the actual races at hand, and that can sort of cost them. But at the moment, Dan McCauley is looking very good out of there. While he isn't the standout driver, he's been, like you say, marred by injury. And if only, we've had glimpses basically, haven't we, Chaz, of him at his full strength and where he's properly fit, and he's had some excellent drives. But then when we get to the stage of the championship where you're having to fight harder for points, maybe it weighs on the drivers a little bit if they are carrying a little niggle here and there, and they think it's not worth battling away if suddenly it flares up mid-race and I have contact with someone or they have contact with me. There's no sense going for an overtake.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This has happened under our radar completely.
Oh.
James Holman is in front of Dominic Brennan after coming out of the pits. Holman was stationary for 13.4 seconds and now is right in front of Dom. He's not got anywhere near Simon. Oof, Callum Brandt smacked that curb then. It sounded like he hit the wall, he hit it that hard. But look at Dominic able to push like mad here, confident in the fact that he can push this car like a madman to the end. Holman moving around one way then the other, really making life difficult for Dom. But I think he's hoping that Callum Brandt can catch up with them and become a part of this as well. John Roberts is just in front of Christopher Smith and Mark Johnson here, but John's only had one pit stop. So too has Mark Johnson, actually. So Christopher's been caught in the middle of all of this. But the key battle right now is Holman and Brennan, because effectively they're fighting for second place in this race, unless somebody else could make a huge difference to the final standings based on their strategy. White Van Gaming in the chat saying, now selling MACDA hats on the fictional Chaz Draycott Media merch store. Make a commentator drive again. It's an interesting title, that, actually. I did plan, now if I'm honest with you, full disclosure here, I did plan on doing a sort of return to racing in officials on iRacing in a bit more of my spare time for the sake of YouTube content, but I've just not got round to it yet, and I'm wondering whether maybe we do it as an endurance race or something and do it as a special event. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how that pans out in future, but I do aim to do some driving again and make content of it, as well. Hopefully John Barnes plans on doing some more driving again as well and not making content out of whatever spin he's just had, but that car looks rather broken. Seems like he's had quite the off on the exit. Maybe hits the curb.
Oh, look, does it just over-rotate on the power? Oh, it's already going, and then he hits the curb into the barrier. It's not a big impact, but it's one that's still difficult to come back from. As he hit the wall a second time, trying to get back up and running?
I think it's bent. I think it's completely broken.
It didn't look like a heavy impact at all, but yeah, you're right, it is crabbing a bit, and then all of a sudden doesn't want to rejoin the circuit, and then hits it again, which, if there wasn't damage before, is now. And it's a shame because John was having such a good race early on. Obviously, he wasn't able to get through a lot. I think it was on the second lap where he suffered damage and then had to come into the pits and again just there. It's race just from bad to worse for him, unfortunately. Is James Holman just having a dropout here? Is his connection just ceased to be for a second?
I think it's properly gone. Normally, it blinks in and out quite quickly for James. I think that is gone because it says completely out on there. I'm not sure if you can check on in the actual sim itself for me, Ed, but it seems like Holman has properly...
I haven't seen anything yet.
We'll keep our eye on that, but he's showing us out on our graphics, and normally it's pretty spot on. It doesn't show us completely out of the race until they are properly gone. Into the pits comes Lewis Ward. Niles Core is a definite shout for this race win, you know. And that sounds absolutely bonkers, but Niles is stayed out a lot longer than everybody else both times here, and he's going to have a really, if he doesn't blink in and out as well. But you saw what happened there, see? He blinked in and out, but he didn't show us out, in inverted commas, and go all grey on the timing screen on the left-hand side, because it was only a temporary blip. So we'll have to wait and see how that comes out. Lewis Ward is on his way out of the pit lane. Is he going to be out in front of Dominic Brennan? I don't think he is, but he is going to be out in front of Callum Brandt. So that's a certain tick in the box for Lewis Ward there. As Guy Edwards and Simon Povey are having a bit of a fight here. Oh, flipping heck. Heinz Mayer throws himself off the circuit to make sure he's not in the way of that, but the two of them nearly made contact going into the right-hander. And right now, Guy Edwards is trying to do James Holman a favour, not knowing that James has disappeared completely out of existence. That is horrible and would mean that James is now out of the championship fight if it's down to that. It's like having a mechanical failure, isn't it? And yeah,
it is. I've just sent you the confirmation, Chaz. It has been a drop connection when everything was looking like it might be going his way and he could take the championship fight to the final round between himself and Lewis Ward. The cruelest twist of fate has seen him drop back, and it's again this circuit having a big impact on the championship. Last time it was Simon Povey dropping out of the battle for, well, the defence of what was his title in Season 2. Let's not forget Simon Povey is a champion from Season 1. He was looking to defend, but it all came undone at this particular round. And now it's just down, I think, to Lewis Ward and Niels Core. Niels can do a very good job for the championship for his own sake if he is to win here tonight. Lewis Ward currently down in 6th place provisionally. Obviously we're expecting, I think, Guy Edwards and Dan McCauley to make extra pit stops, so the order probably won't stay this way. Lewis Ward might find himself finishing up in, say, 4th or maybe even 3rd position if he's able to get ahead of Dominic Brennan. He's certainly trying to at the moment. You can just see the 222 of Heinz Meyer ahead. That is lap traffic that is likely to get out of the way as James Holman comes back out onto the circuit just to try and score any points that he can. He's currently 21st place, but Martin Kenyon up the road is 18 seconds. It's a lot of time to make up in only, well, with only 10 minutes worth of racing to go. I'm not sure if James will be scoring any points at all, and that in itself has a big impact on the team's championship.
It absolutely does, yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't just affect the Drivers' Championship, but what we were saying before about them closing in on the two teams ahead of them, that is a big, big change in the Teams Championship, that is, for RD Simsport. It is absolutely devastating stuff. We know that James has had a bit of an inconsistent connection before. He mentioned that even the fact that the missus was watching Netflix at one point was causing his interview to go to pot. But I'm afraid that's just part and parcel of it sometimes. You do get technical difficulties for drivers more than others. I mean, you know, myself included, even as a broadcaster, my internet connection being rubbish has been plaguing me for a good 4 or 5 years now, and it continues to do so. Niles Core is very impressive in this BMW right now, though, Ed. I'm starting to believe more and more that he won't need to pit again, but I think it's certainly going to be the case, because that BMW likes to drink, and this is not a circuit where saving fuel is easy.
It might be a short one. It might see him drop 20 seconds back into the clutches of Simon Povey, and then it will be game on until the end of the race. Dan McCauley as well, he's been able to save plenty of fuel. Interesting luck for the Apex Racing Academy driver, but this is going to be big for Apex and their team's championship, because if we could be getting them tied on points, you know, coming into the final round of the championship. I'm just going to do some maths now to work it all out. Obviously, Dan Macaulay is yet to pit, and we expect to see him do so sooner rather than later. Dear me, this is just that one little moment, that one disconnect, bit of bad luck. It's had a huge impact on this race for so many drivers.
It really has. Niles Core continues on at the lead and will go across the line once more as the first driver. Dan Macaulay hoping to... Well, actually, no, he's having a pit stop. I was going to say he's hoping to catch up with him a little bit more before he has to come in. Simon Povey next up, and then Dominic Brennan. But Dominic's only got 1.7 seconds over Lewis Ward there, you know, who's got Callum Brandt in tow. But if Lewis can finish in third here, with this as it is, well, he could end up winning this race here. We'll have to just see what happens to Niles Core, where he actually ends up, because that is going to be the key decider, because this will take James Holman out of championship contention. Dominic Brennan will stay within the hunt, though, if he's just in front of Lewis, I think. No, he'll only outscore him by 2 points tonight. Dominic needs to outscore Lewis by at least 3 for this to work. So, really, Niles Core is the only one right now that has got a bit of a question mark over his head in terms of whether he'll still be in the hunt. But Lewis Ward could be on the brink of his championship. We've thought for so long tonight that he's not going to do it. No disrespect to Lewis, it just didn't seem like it was completely favourable based on other drivers. But he suddenly found himself in a position where he could take the second title and have a race to, well, savour at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the moment where we see Lewis Ward defend and retain the SRM GT4 Challenge Championship. This would be obviously historic. No driver has won twice, and certainly no driver has defended the crown. We saw Simon try and fail in Season 2. This is where Lewis Ward took top honours, and it's looking very good for him at this moment in time. Oliver Carwadine in and out of the pits in amongst chasing cars. Niles Core still in the lead of the race, and you're right, you know, Chaz. The more he goes on, the more I begin to believe.
I know, I'm a believer. Never mind the Shrek reference on the back of the car being about "Do the Roar." It's more about the intro song. It is the outro song for the first film, isn't it? I am a believer, absolutely, everybody, because Niles Core is wishing this BMW around the circuit right now. It doesn't sound like it's at flat chat, but then again, it's not one that makes the most exciting noise in the world. I'll have to see what he's doing. I don't know, it's hard to tell, because when you're off the throttle in this car, it is remarkably quiet. It's a very strange car to listen to, but still, 19 seconds over Simon Povey. He is revving it out by the sound of it as well. I'm not sure here, you know. This is interesting. This could be a very small splash and dash if it is. I think there will be a point where he realises that he might not be able to make it to the end. But he pitted on lap 17. We're on lap 33 right now, actually. So he was able to do 17 laps from the start of the race. This is, sorry, lap 44 right now. So yeah, here comes the pit stop, surely. Yes, he is coming into the pits now. So we did have that little bit of hope there for a moment. But we're going to keep our eye on Niles and just see how long he's in the pits for, because further behind, Simon Povey and Dominic Brennan are going to take first and second place for Sponsec CDM Esports Scourers. Lewis Ward is now 2 seconds off the back of Dominic Brennan. I think he knows he doesn't need to push that hard, but he does have Callum Brandt behind him, hoping to salvage some more points for RD Simsport. The frame rate is awful through there, I do apologise. Niles blinking in and out still while in the pit lane, so I don't think we're going to get an accurate representation of his pit stop time. Just says 0 for me.
Passed.
Whoa. Yeah, something's gone wrong there for Niles, actually, hasn't it?
Niles, has he overstepped the mark in the pit lane? Has he got a penalty?
He very well may have done. He very well may have done. He's been stationary for a long, long time, and that throws the championship way out of the window. He now gets moving. He's dropped down to 19th place at my end. I'm not sure that's correct. There you go. It's just updated now to 7th. Yeah, I think that's
still not good. Still not good at all.
I think that was more due to connection than anything else. But Simon Povey leads the race. That is the fact. Dominic Brennan second place, and Lewis Ward is currently in third position for Apex Racing Academy. And even if Callum Brandt finishes in front of him and takes 1 point away, that will put Lewis Ward at the top of the championship by enough to be a double Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge champion back-to-back as well, and with only one race victory to his name this season. That is really what we call doing a Turkington. There's battles further on as
with
well.
all of this in the championship going on, it's almost going to make us forget about the job that Spontex CDM Esports Scourers are doing. A 1-2 finish on the cards. If they can just nurse it home for the next couple of laps, this will be a brilliant turn up for them. And I think their first 1-2 this season. In fact, the first, I'm not sure if it's the first 1-2 we've seen all season long.
Or
I'm
ever.
trying to wrap my brains.
No,
Me and
You and
Andy Hopley managed,
Yeah.
and I think, didn't we see, was it at Daytona last season, or was it this season where we saw Lewis Ward and Dan Macaulay take a 1-2?
Not sure, you
This
know.
might be the first, I'm not sure, but certainly maximum points being taken by Spontex CDM Esports Scourers, which is pivotal for their championship, considering Simon won't be able to make the final round. And also that RD SimSport have had troubles with one of their drivers, James Holman, the internet disconnect. It's certainly working in their favour now.
There was a 1-2 between Lewis and Dan last season in round 7. That's when they managed to get that
Was
one
that Daytona?
done. No, round 7 last season. Oh God. What was round 7 last season? It was the Red Bull Ring, actually, here. Funnily enough.
It was here.
They did get a 1-2 here, so it seems like McLaren's and 1-2 finishes here go very well together. We'll have to see how that weighs in future. There's a battle going on further down, once again between Fausto Pinto, Ryan Penny and Ralph Mayer. The three of them glued to each other. Fausto being chased down by these two Orris Racing purple cars, all of them in the points with no need to over-exaggerate what they're doing. But here is Simon Povey with just one lap to go here at the Red Bull Ring. He took a win fantastically at Spa-Francorchamps just a few rounds ago, then had a bit of a nightmare at the Hockenheimring after contact with Lewis Ward, and we all thought that was going to blow the championship wide open. But he starts the final lap now for Spontex CDM Esports Scourers. Dominic Brennan crossing the line in second place, then Lewis Ward in third. He's now opened up a bit of a gap over Callum Brandt behind, but if anything, I'm not sure if he'll even know that he's in a championship winning position right now, Lewis, but this would be a lap to savour if he was, wouldn't it, Ed?
Yeah, it would do, and it's one that he can just nurse it home. Like you say, I think even if Callum Brandt was to overtake him, there wouldn't be any difference in the standings, would there?
No.
He can just nurse it home and carry on through. Neil's caught in a titanic battle himself to try and keep Dan Macaulay at bay. I'm not sure what happened to Neil's car, if it was just a matter of a penalty on the pit entry or something, or what was going on, but either way, it's really hurt his chances of getting something here tonight and keeping the championship alive. But again, it just shows the consistency of Lewis Ward that put the other drivers in a position where they had to push and they were at risk of making mistakes. And the fact that it did does not take any shine away from Lewis Ward and his performances here tonight, and of course throughout the whole of the season.
Yeah, Lewis has been absolutely amazing all championship long, and right now a driver that's been amazing since the start of this entire championship, way back in season 1, is Simon Povey. It's a shame we're not going to see him here for the final round after this, but what a brilliant way this is going to be to sign off season 3 for him with no appearance at the last round. It's Simon Povey winning at the Red Bull Ring for Spontex CDM Esports Scourers in a 1-2 finish with Dominic Brennan. But your champion of season 3 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge is Lewis Ward, the first driver to take back-to-back titles, the first driver to take more than one title, and what a great way to do it as well. Amazing, amazing stuff as ever by Lewis Ward. Sure, he would have wanted it to go down to an on-track fight with his rivals. He would have wanted it to be door-to-door stuff, as we all would. But at the end of the day, in it to win it, and luck was on his side tonight. And Lewis Ward is the champion. And what a great result that is for Spontex CDM Esports Scourers. Flipping out. Amazing stuff.
Brilliant stuff for Spontex CDM Esports, and brilliant as well for Lewis Ward, who comes over the line and defends his SRM GT4 Challenge crown. I'm not sure if he's even aware of it.
No, I don't know. I don't know if he is. I really don't know if he is, but, well, he's done it. back-to-back titles. Incredible, incredible performance that is. And I think we need to do a bit of maths in regards to the Teams Championship and see how that's going to shake up as well, because James Holman's disconnection tonight is really going to throw that up in the air. He's going to be classified in 21st position after all of that. The biggest mover in the field is going to be Oliver Carwadine as well, actually. 8 places gained for him. A very solid run once again in that BMW for Oliver, finishing in 14th position from 22nd on the grid. So very well done to him. Flashes the lights across the line. Great to see that. As here comes this battle, Ryan Penny and Fausto Pinto finally slug it out till the 18th round as they cross the line. And there you go. Penny and Pinto 15th and 16th. Ralph Mayer, I don't think had to do another lap because I think he finished behind Simon at the very end there. So he still completed the race an extra lap more. But wow, it doesn't get much better than that for Spontex CDM Esports tonight. I can't hold back my bias. I'm a very, very happy boy, as you can all imagine. But wow, max points for Simon Povey, pole position, and a very flawless victory with his teammate joining him second as well. And a wonderful night where Lewis Ward is concerned. Sure, it wasn't the easiest for him, was it, Ed, with that qualifying performance, but he'll be over the moon with how it all turned out.
Oh, mate, it's going to be on cloud 9, isn't he, after all of that? But tell you what, those standings that we're seeing now, it doesn't tell half the story of the race that we were just treated to, does it?
Oh, absolutely. And it looks to me like Niles Core, by the way. He's just posted in the Discord server saying, "My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined." It's a gif and a meme, but he says it's all my fault. I think he did get a penalty at the end there. Lewis Ward is typing in the chat, so I'm not sure whether he's going to be asking, am I champion or what? Still, there is your race result, everybody. Simon Povey taking the race win. Dominic Brennan making it a Spontex CDM Esports Scourers 1-2. Fantastic stuff. Lewis Ward finishing in third, getting another podium for his ever-consistent season and taking the championship for the second time on the bounce. Callum Brandt finishes just behind in fourth position, ahead of his teammate Christopher Smith for RD Simsport 2. Niles Core finishing in 6th place on a night of what could have been. Dan McCauley finishing in 7th. Good recovery that by Dan after a bit of a poor qualifying. Guy Edwards finishes in 8th ahead of Rob Sharp in 9th. And Ben Gregory rounds out the top 10 for Boosted Jericho. John Roberts finishes 11th ahead of Rob Sutherland with a great finish there actually in 12th ahead of Mark Johnson. Oliver Carwadine finishes in 14th in car 14 ahead of Ryan Penny and Fausto Pinto. I'm sure those will be having a big debrief afterwards. Ralph Mayer and Heinz Mayer again together in the standings of that race once more. It's a very good party trick by those two. Paul Goffin finishes 19th and Martin Kenyon is the last point scorer ahead of James Holman. A real shame that is for James, and we send our deepest support and whatever we can for James, because that was not easy to witness. Andy Marston finishes 22nd and John Barnes unfortunately out of the race. Well then, amazing stuff really, Ed, and plenty to think about and plenty to go through, but we need to go all the way back to where it started, and we had no idea what sort of race we were going to have ahead of us there, but still, it provided epic entertainment, as it always does in this championship.
Yeah, obviously after qualifying, we were left with so many questions. Was Lewis Ward going to have enough in him to go and properly attack to get the points he needed to secure the championship? And we thought for a moment he was going to happily sit back and take it till the final round, but then as the race began to develop and all of the drivers around him having their own issues or maybe just not quite on the pace, Lewis really seized the opportunity with both hands and thought, right, I'm not going to leave any doubt, I'm going to take the championship now rather than leave any questions coming into the final round. And well, that was a brilliant drive, the drive of a champion, I think it's fair to say, coming through to get on the podium and add yet one more podium to his, well, increasingly strong tally of, I think, podium. He's finished on the podium nearly every single race now, hasn't he, I think?
Absolutely, yeah. It's been an incredible run, and once again, like you say, the tally is definitely the word. We've had a very in-depth explanation by Niles Core of what has happened. So he was really low on fuel. He was really running it out of fuel. And he said that he's gone slightly past the pit box. He's wanted to then put it in reverse. It didn't go into reverse straight away, so he's just sat there revving it without moving, and he got it into reverse, and it stalled because it had no fuel in it. So then he had to tow to the pit lane because he was about 20 centimetres away from where he should have been, and it cost him about 20 seconds. It's absolutely gutting, but that's the margins you deal with, isn't it? That is the margins you deal with in a championship like this and in this sort of simulated environment. It's just devastating, isn't it?
It is, and it just shows that there is zero room for error, and it was a mistake that he was probably forced into by the pace of Simon Povey, but also the fact that Lewis Ward was up there so quick, basically handing him down and forced him into that situation where he had to nail his pit entry and put it in the pit box perfectly, because if he didn't, all of a sudden, he would have had Lewis already breathing down his neck, and I think that might have been weighing on his mind a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's it. It can really, really weigh on you. I mean, there's a lot of elements to these races. It's not just all about pace and sprinting, like we've said before. A driver that's shown us that in the past is Christopher Smith, who we've now got in the commentary box with us. Chris, a solid top 5 for you tonight. Plenty to think about out there, though. It seemed like it was a race that had many chapters for a lot of people.
Yeah, good evening, guys. Hope the race looked good, and it was a good one, good result, best result so far, but bittersweet because it came at the cost of James Holman, who's, I don't know, should we call it mechanical defect?
Yes.
Have to sack the RD SimSport engineers. But yeah, unfortunately, a big shame for that, because that would have been some awesome points on the board for us as a team. But yeah, that makes it a bit more exciting for the final round.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the team's championship. But yeah, and then I don't know what happened to Neil's core as well, because I got ahead of him in the first pit stops because I kind of short fueled a bit and hoping to keep up with the leaders to get a bit of a tow. And yeah, and then after the second pit stops, he must have been caught speeding or something.
Yes, he's explained in the Discord that he went past the pit box and he was that low on fuel that when he finally got it in reverse, it wouldn't move. So he had to tow 20 centimetres, and then that was it. Which is that's how iRacing works, unfortunately. Sometimes it's so frustrating, but I mean, still, it was great to watch you two BMWs battle it out, actually, though, because obviously you two do that car a lot of justice. What's it like when you're fighting with a guy in the same car?
Yeah, I think fighting is a term you could use quite loosely, because Nils is a lot quicker than me, but he is, yeah, it was good track today. The BMW seemed to hold its own, and especially during qualifying, I did that lap without any kind of tow, so I was quite surprised that I managed to pull a lap together without getting an off track. I mean, I probably did about 8 laps in total, and about 6 of them had off tracks on, so somehow everything came together at once and got a decent lap on the board and put me up there at 6 on the grid, which was nice. And everything else from there is a bit of a blur, really, because it was just so much going on. And yeah, nice to finish in, as you say, a little bit higher than where you started. It was a good day at the office.
Well, that's it. I mean, as a driver, you know, having that gain through the field, it's always a solid one, and that's what we want as a driver. Obviously, final round still to come, though. Probably the trickiest track on the calendar, actually, especially for a car like the BMW. Imola. Yeah. What are you thinking about that?
Well, I'm off to Knock Hill tomorrow to watch the touring cars, so I'm coming back on Tuesday. So there'll be 0 practice time, and you'll probably see me in a barrier somewhere during that race. Because, yeah, that is a tricky track, and I'm really ruining the fact that I'm not going to be able to practice. But a trip up to Knock Hill is going to be awesome with the family and everything. So, yeah, it'll be good fun. But, yeah, next week will be interesting, shall we say.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really solid round to finish the championship, especially at a bit of a dramatic circuit like that. It's definitely one to look forward to. I've just realised as well that I've done a horrific miscalculation in terms of points, and Lewis hasn't won the championship yet. Thank you, Ed, for pointing that out. But still, plenty to look forward to, Chris, and obviously we look forward to seeing you again on track. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before you go?
Yeah, shout out to the guys who won the race. Simon Povey, I think this is his final race, wasn't it, for this season? He can't make it next week, and well done for getting some more silverware to add to his collections. And good, epic pace by the McLarens at the front. Well done again to take it home. And say hello to my wife. Hopefully I can crowbar her into watching this tomorrow. And say hi to all the RD SimSport guys, and of course my goldfish.
Love it. Well, I hope the goldfish enjoyed the show. If he can remember the start of the race, that is. But still, thank you very much for jumping in as always, Chris. A pleasure to speak to you, mate. And we'll see you at Imola, and enjoy Knock Hill as well.
Nice one. Catch you later.
Cheers. Well, there we go. Christopher Smith giving us a good insight there, Ed, as to how that race goes on and obviously the mind of a driver. It is one of those circuits, though, isn't it, that it's not got the most corners in the world, so there's not the most amount of different tiny pinch points to focus on. But it really is a mental circuit, isn't it, the Red Bull Ring? In a strange way.
Mental in both sense, I think. It's mental as in the speeds that the drivers can take through some of these corners, and how obviously that final sector, the elevation change, it boggles the mind sometimes around here. You have to really be here in person to get a full grip of it, and I guess you've had that luxury, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But as well, mental as in, you have to be so switched on, you can't afford any sort of misstep because it punishes you instantly like that.
It really does, and it's one of those tracks where you have to be in it to win it, and certainly making the most of all of your battles. We saw Rob Sharp in a lot of those tonight. It seemed like he always had company out there. Rob, talk us through the race from your perspective. Red Bull Ring's always a bit of a joy, isn't it?
Quite the opposite. I think it's one of my least favourite tracks.
All right, Rob. Well, we'll speak to you at Imola, hopefully. See you later. Joking. I'm offended.
Yeah, I mean, today it was about just keeping it on the track. After throwing it away at Spa and then having an incident at Hockenheim, I told myself, look, just don't come off for God's sake, and actually the race was. I don't know how much of it you noted through the broadcast, because we were kind of like 8th, 9th, 10th sort of thing. But myself and Guy had a race long battle, past each other a couple of times. He got the better of me in the end, but not by much. So it was real fun and good racing.
Well, it certainly looked like a lot of fun. I mean, it's one of those tracks where, I was just saying then, there's not the most corners in the world on this place, but it's still very difficult to get it right lap after lap because of the nature of those corners. But it means that because of the long straights and the slipstreaming opportunities, you've got more time, sort of like Monza, to think about getting the braking zone wrong, haven't you?
Yeah, you have. getting it wrong, exactly, yes. You have, yeah. And we were just talking in the chat that, it's so easy to rack up the X's on this track,
Well, yeah, that's very true. I mean, with all the runoff and everything, there's so much of it sort of... It invites you to run wide and sort of get close to taking the mick of the track limits, but it's very easy to overstep the mark all of a sudden, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Particularly at turn 1. That's just awful. And then, the car nearly over-rotates every time I go around turn 2. So, because it's such a low-speed corner with the uphill bit, the back's not happy going around that corner. But hey, I'm pleased with 9th place. It's a very competitive field, and I didn't get in anybody's way and ruin anybody's race. So, that's a result for me.
Well, that's absolutely mega to hear, Rob, and obviously we look forward to seeing you at Imola. Is that a circuit you're looking forward to going well at? Because you've done all right there in the past.
I have done all right there in the past. I'll have to do some practice and see what it's like. So yeah, I've always liked Imola just as a track. To watch Grand Prix racing on. It's a fantastic track. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Whether I'll get a result or not is another question. But I think it's a great track for the last round of this championship.
Well, we look forward to that as well. Rob, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just the usual, just my family and yourselves, guys, for a brilliant broadcast, and Andy from SRM for being the boss man and organising things along with yourselves. So no, that's it. Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Lovely stuff. Great to speak to you as always, Rob. Thank you very much, mate. We'll see you soon.
Cheers, man. Bye-bye.
What we'll do is very quickly drag in as well Mr. Lewis Ward, who joins us in the box. And Ed, to save my embarrassment, why don't you take it away with...
Why don't you talk to him, Chaz? You were the one who
our champion. Lewis, I made the very stupid mistake of not looking at the spreadsheet in the final lap and realising that Niles Core is, as long as he scores maximum points, still in with the chance of the championship. But it's almost confirmed for you that you're back-to-back title holder now. You must be very pleased with how that's turned out this evening.
I mean, yeah. There was a lack of practice today. I mean, these last 2 races, I'm just going in, kind of get points and hopefully see the championship out. And I mean, like, 3rd position is kind of job done at this point. Like, the CDM guys were just too fast today. Like, Simon was on another level. Yeah, like 3rd is pretty much the best I could have hoped for today. Well,
that's what it's all about, isn't it? At this point in the season, we were saying about the fact that you've only got one win so far this season, but the consistency is what's built that championship lead up, and it's all about picking your battles. Is that something you think about every time you go into a race, or do you just see how the pace is and take it lap by lap?
Yeah, I think that's just the kind of driver like I am. I'll always like kind of just get points on the board rather than like James and Simon have always been like quicker than me. I'm not afraid to admit that. Like on their day, they're far much quicker. Yeah, like my whole I don't know what the word is, but it's just scoring points. Just be there at the finish line. I think the race I won was at Daytona, and I still kind of fluked the win for that. I mean, the only track I felt like I had pace at was Donington, and James still took the win there. Yeah, no, those guys have just been another level. Like, if they were here every round, I have no doubt that they would be above me in the points. But yeah, maybe next season.
Well, it's been great to watch all season already, Lewis, and there's still one round left to go. Is there a win in the bag at Imola, do you reckon?
Imola is like one of my favourite tracks behind Donington, probably. I mean, yeah, everything about it, and the GT4s are probably going to suit it quite well. Yeah, I mean, all I've got to do is just score points around there and just not bin it into a wall. But that's easier said than done, really.
Especially at Imola. It's not an easy place to go racing, especially with the curbs and the speed of some of these guys as well. I imagine there's going to be quite a lot of pressure on pushing yourself to the limit, but still, we always look forward to it. Is there anybody you'd like to give a quick shout out to before we go, Lewis?
To Dan, obviously. I know we're still in the championship fight, I think, going into Imola. I mean, I think it's a repeat of last season at Barcelona, but let's hope it turns out a different way. And then to you guys for the broadcast, it's always a pleasure watching them back.
Fantastic stuff. Great to speak to you, Lewis. Very well done tonight, and pretty much got the championship wrapped up, but we look forward to seeing the official confirmation, let's say, at Imola.
Yes, guys.
Cheers. Well, there we go, Ed. Basically now, all we would need to see is if Niles Core is not on pole at Imola, that is championship done for Lewis, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. He knows what he needs to do, and that is essentially just score a point or two, and then that's championship done and dusted. Of course, easier said than done. We have seen stranger things happen in these championships. Time on iRacing, so we can't count his chickens just yet, but like you say, he's sort of not quite champion, what we'd say, champion light, diet champion.
That's definitely not me, diet champion, flipping out. Someone that will confirm that for us is Dan McCauley, who just jumps into the box for a sec. Dan, a pretty decent night all in all, considering how qualifying went. It wasn't the perfect qualifying situation for you guys, but you still gained places in the race and got those important championship points.
Yeah, that was a lot of work for 7th place. A little bit gutted, to be honest. I kind of used up too many incidents at the start, chasing the train. And I finished on 19, so that's why I had to let Niels go past on the last lap. He's a bit feisty sometimes, so I didn't want to risk a 4x or a 0x to a 1x or anything. And cost myself a bit more. Just had to play the smart game and see if we can bag this team's championship.
Well, it's going to be a great one to watch in the finale. Me and Ed are going to be doing a lot of maths throughout the finale, of course. What do you make of actually racing at Imola, though? It's not an easy track to get the mastery of, is it?
I don't think there could be a worse track for the last round, to be honest. It's going to be another one of those like managing incidents tracks, but I think it'll be good. I have no idea what car is going to be quickest. I think if James's internet holds out for the whole race, then he's going to be in with a shout. Callum with his fuel saving, I hope isn't as effective because Imola's quite uphill. And I just need to pray that Lewis is fast, as usual, and then I need to not spin on lap 1, as has been the case so many times this year. But I'm just a bit annoyed that I missed a whole round now, otherwise we'd pretty much have this sold up, but we'll move. I think we're kind of on the back foot again, but we'll see what happens and see if we can just about clinch it.
Well, that's what keeps it all exciting, mate. And I think, is it a wise decision to maybe not go BMX in this week and not do your arms in for once?
That would be the smart thing.
It's not what you're going to do, though, is it?
Is it going to happen? Probably not.
Probably not.
We've just had the Cycling World Championship, so all the professionals have flown over from all over the world, and to see them riding your local skate park's pretty crazy. So it's hard to resist the urge to go and just watch and learn from those guys. So
And then throw yourself at the scenery.
yeah, 12 foot looks pretty high, but it looks higher when you're falling from it. So yeah.
I'm going to get that. Well, yeah, that sounds like something you'd see on a gravestone. Still, it's what it is.
What are you trying to insinuate there?
Well, I'm not. Yeah, anyway.
That better not be a commentator's cuss, I tell you.
Jesus Christ, that'd be
Glad you said it and not Ed.
Yeah, to be fair, Ed did say it and you just stopped talking as of right now. Still.
I'm staying quiet as a mouse throughout all of that.
One more round to go, Dan. We look forward to seeing how you and Lewis and all the guys get on in the team's championship. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before you go?
Big shout out to Lewis. I think has he mathematically won it or very close? Or I don't know, I'm not very good at maths.
If Niles doesn't get pole at Imola, Lewis has won it.
Alright, okay. What a legend. So well done to him. I'm sure he'll end up getting pole at Imola with his 2 laps of practice as he normally does. So now hopefully he wraps that up pretty quickly, and yeah, cheers to you guys.
Always a pleasure, Dan. Thanks very much, mate. Don't hurt yourself, and we'll see you next week.
Ciao.
Well, there you go, Ed. I love that. That's a hell of a quote, and 12 feet looks pretty high, but it looks even higher when you're falling from it. That's probably a quote of the night, to be honest. But what a fantastic evening the Spontex CDM Esports Scourers guys have had, and what a great evening for Lewis Ward as well. What looked so difficult with how qualifying went for those guys, they've just made it work again.
They have. They've done exactly what they needed to do, and just working out the maths on the spreadsheet, they will be taking the lead into the final round of the team's championship. So Adi Simspot do need to have a good round to claw back. It's not by a whole lot, is it though, Chaz? Only 4 points.
Yeah, it's a tiny amount. It's going to be very, very close to see how it all rounds out. And hopefully you will all join us in a week's time when we will head to Imola for the finale of the season. A quick thank you now for Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Blinds to Go, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Mydas Simulations, our championship sponsors. To all the drivers and competitors and everybody watching at home, we love you all and it's great to be a part of this championship. We look forward to that final dance in a week's time. Thanks to Ed May as well, my co-commentator, for the entertainment as ever. And I, Chaz Draycott, and everybody here at the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. We'll see you in a week's time. Have a good one, everybody. 4 French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. They're 3 wide again. Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across. They're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
Before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy. You know, these are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower brake.
Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, he's been loved. And a terrific show off. Gregory now, I love this. 16.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.